Hey, beautiful soul. You're listening to the Rising into Mindful Motherhood podcast, your weekly dose of fertility wisdom. I'm your host, Dr. Katie Wood. I'm a barefoot mama bear, pharmacist, and integrative fertility coach. This is your go-to podcast for all things to naturally nourish your fertility, embody womb healing, and reclaim your feminine power to accelerate your path to pregnancy. My expert guests and I will be having intentional conversations to discuss the many facets of a thriving, fertile foundation, natural wellness, and how we grow and transform as women on our journey to motherhood. So let's dive in, shall we? Hello and welcome to Rising into Mindful Motherhood. In this episode, I'll be talking with Karla Levit, a mom of two, certified health and wellness coach after walking away from finance after 20 years. Her journey to motherhood has not been an easy one, with a stillbirth, miscarriages, failed IVF attempts, but as a result, she has become passionate about all things related to pregnancy and infertility when confronted with her own struggles. She is now the proud mother of two rainbow babies, both conceived naturally, so that's absolutely beautiful and amazing. And today we'll be diving into how we can heal ourselves, reclaiming our personal power, and becoming our own advocates, which all three of these things are like exactly how I look at my work and how I support women. So I'm super excited for this conversation with you, Karla. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Whenever you're ready, let's just dive into your journey, a little bit about that, what that looked like, and how that has really helped guide you onto the path that you're on today.
Well, thank you for having me, and what a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think if you would have told me 10 years ago that I would be doing this work trying to help women through all the pain and the trauma that I suffered personally, I would have said, absolutely not, no way. But my pain has turned into my purpose, and I am so passionate about this work because I know that there's still so much work to do. 10 years after my stillbirth, I, I still struggle with the pain and the trauma and the grief, and it comes and it goes. And I realized that all the issues in conception that I was going through had to deal with that loss. Emotionally, physically, and mentally and spiritually, I had not healed. In fact, I had just buried it deep inside, pretending that it didn't really exist because I was on this path to motherhood, hell or high water. And it took this journey for me to realize that what I was trying to do and what I was trying to force and what I was denying in myself and in my intuition and my own inner knowing, I couldn't continue down this path because at the end of the road, after two failed rounds of IVF, we just couldn't continue financially, emotionally, physically, spiritually. We just couldn't continue. So I was kind of left at a crossroad. What do I do now? Do I give up, or do I try something different? And that's why I love all of your posts on Instagram. Like, they resonate so much with me because it's about opening ourselves up to different possibilities, opening ourselves up to our own strength, our own power, our own intuition, our own feminine power that I think really, especially when you're going through infertility and you feel like something's wrong with you or that you're broken. And I think you really just hand your power back. But it's more about taking back your power, leaning into your intuition and your inner knowing, and having faith and trust, and learning to love your body and trust your body. I think those are really key.
Mm-hmm. Yes, my heart goes out to you because I can only imagine, especially even 10 years later, right? You're saying it kind of ebbs and flows, and in losing any child at any age is just so deep, and it's hard to make sense of it. After my fertility experience and hearing so many others like yours, where When you said if you asked yourself 10 years ago if you would be doing this, you were like, heck no. But now here you are supporting women and it's not just in fertility, it's like in your whole entire life on so many different aspects of it. And your child that you lost, I had read in Spiritual Fertility. I don't know if you've ever read that book, but one of the things that she says is their souls were too pure to be on this earth. So I really love that. And I almost think of it in a way is they really almost, I don't want to say sacrifice so much, but they were there to help put you on this path, as painful as it may have been and continues to be, but to really bring out this person in Karla, right? Who you were deep within. And now you have your two beautiful rainbow babies, and you can share this like next evolution, higher self that maybe you wouldn't have had you not had that experience. And I have not experienced a loss, so I can't compare my situation, but struggling to get pregnant, when I look back, I was in a very disconnected and disempowered state. Had I gotten pregnant right away, I can only imagine how I would have been able to show up as a mother or even in my pregnancy and my birth. So I really just value and honor that experience and that journey because I think it's all here for us, for everyone, where it's our journeys aren't happening to us, they're happening for us. And it can be so hard to see that in the moment. But I think that's why it's so important to have a practitioner like you or me alongside you to help open your eyes because we can have blind spots when we're in the thick of it, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that everything that you said, again, completely resonates. I think 10 years ago, in the career that I was, I mean, as a first generation Latina woman, I didn't really have the opportunity to really open up creatively. I was coming from a scarcity mindset. I needed to be ultra independent. I'm super hyper independent, parentified at a young age. All those things made me feel like I had to be this person that who wasn't authentic like me. I was very working on Wall Street, aggressive, very type A. I would force anything and I would just push through, power through, power through, power through. And when I came up against this, you can't power through this. I think it losing her broke me into a million pieces, but those cracks is where the light was able to come in, and it's been the beginning of my healing. Because the night that she died, she came to me in a dream. She said, "Everything is going to be okay, mommy. Everything is going to be okay." So from that moment on, I had to really learn to trust in something that I couldn't see with my eyes, but that I could feel with my heart. And it really opened me up spiritually. It opened up my heart. And I'm absolutely 100% better mother because of her, because of my daughter Paloma, because I sit in such gratitude and such awe of these miracle little babies that I get to hold and I get to mother and I get to parent. And I'm so much more of a conscious parent in everything that I do and the way that I live because I suffered something so traumatic, having to bury our daughter. I never would have imagined that that would have happened to me. And nobody really talks about it because it's just like, it's like one of those, it's like when you see a car accident on the highway, you kind of slow down and you look real quick, but then you keep going because God forbid that happened to you. But then when it happens to you, it just changes you completely on such like a cellular level. I'm a completely different person. I'm a better person. Obviously, I would love to have my daughter here. She would be 10 years old, but I am a much better person, more present mother, a more humble person, a more patient woman. Yeah, I'm so much better for because of her.
Yeah. Yeah, just a lot of gratitude and
Yeah.
compassion. And yeah, when you were explaining your experience in your old job, just like heavily masculinized is
Mhm.
like what was coming up. And so many of us are in that state because as little girls, that's how we're raised. Be independent, get your own job, don't rely on a man, and all of these things. And I think that all of those are important to an extent, but when we really overextend ourselves and we shame and silence our cyclical menstrual cycles, we just become so disconnected from the feminine. And I know that's what I experienced coming off of 13 years of birth control. I didn't even really have any true understanding of my cycle, completely disconnected. So, yeah, just so much beauty that can come from that. And really being able to step outside of, I'm sure that was a comfort zone for you. That was what you knew, that was what was familiar working in finance. So, being able to step away from that and do something that you're really passionate about. So, I would love to kind of talk about. So I'm not sure how old your kids are now, but what happened between that time and let's just say when you conceived your first child naturally? Because something must have happened to really shift your body, your mind, and your spirit to really allow you to receive two natural pregnancies.
Yeah, well, my daughter Isabella was conceived naturally 2 years after our daughter's death in Positano, Italy. I know what it was. It was, I hate to say this because when people are trying to conceive and a lot of people have a lot of these platitudes like just relax, go on vacation, do this, do that. And I know that a lot of women kind of internalize that, but there is some truth behind it. I know that it seems kind of flippant, but there's truth because what happened was it was literally probably the first time my husband and I had connected on that emotional, spiritual, physical level that I believe as conscious parents you need to connect in that way. I have to say too that my husband suffered his own trauma. So it's not just the woman. I gave birth to Paloma and I was very traumatized. My body was in fight or flight, constantly, tons of cortisol, a lot of pain, a lot of stuck energy. But he had that as well. He was always thinking in the back of his mind, oh God, could we lose another baby? So there was a block there with him too. So us being able to connect. And I think it was just part of the universe's plan because we had planned this a year in advance. And you can't plan something like that where I'm in the fertile window, etc. I mean, I just think that some things are meant to be. And she was sent to us in a moment of pure love between my husband and I. And I have to say though that the pregnancy was very, very scary. I was constantly on alert, scared to go to the bathroom, scared to wipe, scared for an ultrasound. I mean, I would have panic attacks. It was a very difficult pregnancy. And this is kind of off topic, but I believe in epigenetics. And my daughter Isabella, she gets anxious. She has anxiety. And I can't help but think in utero, there was so much anxiety and so much of my energy that was surrounding her. But yes, so she was conceived naturally in a beautiful place. Like I said, like we're super connected. And I think that was just part of the universe's plan. And then clearly I had not done my healing because we tried to conceive again naturally. And I had three more early term miscarriages. And my OB who said, Karla, you're getting older in age. I was 37, 38. We just can't keep doing this. IVF is going to be easy. It's going to be the easy solution. Trust me. And I trusted him. Of course, I trusted him. And I said, okay. And we jumped into IVF. And I was at the most prestigious like clinics in New York City. And I have to say, the minute I walked in there, it was a football size office full of women. I've never seen so many women in one room, all their hopes and their dreams and their finances banking on these doctors giving them what they so desperately wanted. But I just walked in there and I intuitively knew this isn't going to work for me. I just felt it. I felt this coldness. I felt like a factory to me. I don't know. I just intuitively felt this barrier between this process and what my intuition was telling me. But we went through and I had 23 eggs retrieved. I had genetically tested embryos. And when you're going for transfer, your lining has to be a certain thickness. Mine was absolutely perfect. And not one stuck, second failed, third failed. And I went from being the model ideal Ritz-Carlton of uteruses, is what my RE told me. Then I became, you need a surrogate. or you need to do another round. And so that was the moment where I knew that we couldn't continue. And then I felt that I had to do something different. Like clearly this wasn't going to work, so I needed to go back and really focus on my own healing and find a different way because this certainly wasn't going to work for us. And I felt in that moment the medical community had given up on me, but I wasn't going to give up on myself. Nobody was going to tell me when my fertility journey was done. I was going to decide that with my husband. And so it was really a moment of empowerment where I stepped into my power and I was kind of like, I didn't want to say I'm going to prove you wrong, but I said I'm going to prove something to myself because I still feel like I'm going to have another child. And so I'm not going to give up, but I'm going to have this reckless surrender. I was going to surrender without giving up. And literally 4 months later, we were blessed with my son, Leo. I got pregnant naturally. And then at 41 and gave birth at 42. So
Wow.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. So
yeah.
so many things. I'm just gonna go back to the beginning, and I wholeheartedly agree with you that I don't think you have to go on vacation to get pregnant, but I do think it is about relaxing and taking that pressure off
Yeah.
because that is actually when we conceived as well. It was a month where we were both going in two different places. We thought that we were going to miss the fertile window. So we were just kind of like, it
Mhm.
is what it is. It's not going to happen this month. And you can imagine my surprise when I got a positive pregnancy
Yeah.
test that next month. And I think it was because we took the pressure off. I mean, I had also been doing work with an acupuncturist that I definitely think had helped, but that
Yeah.
pressure was not there to get that outcome. And then just them telling you that your eggs are getting old because you're 37, 38
Yeah.
just really breaks my heart and saddens me because that is what women are being told, right? I feel like a lot of women have this fear that once you hit 35, it's like your fertility just drops off of a cliff. And I'm about to turn 35 this month, and there's a chance that we might try for a second. I'm not really, I'm not worrying about it. I'm not stressing about it because I feel that my body will be able to get pregnant again, even well past 35. So it's so interesting that you had that almost like somatic experience of stepping into that clinic and it not feeling right,
Yeah.
right? I actually think I had spoken to that in a recent post where, or maybe it was my last podcast, where you have this feeling that this doesn't feel right, but you do it anyway
Yeah.
because the doctors or whoever it is on the outside telling you this is what you need to do. So we do it because we're trusting them over our own bodies. And there's no shame in this because we all go through this, right? It brings me back to my pregnancy when we decided to do a home birth because I envisioned birthing in a hospital and I could feel that constriction in
Yeah.
my body. Like basically, I could already feel my labor stalling just by stepping into the hospital without even having to actually be in labor. Like I could just feel it in my body. So yeah, just being able to come back to ourselves and trust those
Yeah.
feelings when they come up or at least give them space, give them time and explore them with curiosity and journal about it and meditate on it because yeah. So it's that's crazy that you conceived naturally 4 months
Yeah.
after doing that.
Yeah. Well, it's exactly what it was coming back home to my own body, coming
Mhm.
back home to my own tuition, reclaiming my power. Because as women, as well, we're taught to be obedient, be a good girl, do what they say, you know, don't talk too much, wait to be spoken to. When I had that
Yeah.
relationship with my RE, I trusted his knowledge and his expertise, and I wanted him to like me because I wanted him to save me. I wanted him to help me, give me what I so desperately wanted. And what I didn't realize, and I realize now, is that I needed to reclaim what was so desperately mine, what is my birthright. And I didn't need him to give it to me. I needed to take it for myself. but I needed to release myself from everything that I was carrying, all that trauma, that pain, that heartache. And it's not that it's poof, it's gone. My healing is a daily practice. And I know that this grief comes in waves. Yesterday was International Mother's Bereavement Day. And when these holidays come around, I feel the societal pressure to say or do or post or do these things. And I don't know what it is. I kind of just clam up because the pain and the trauma is still so real. And I feel it's so personal. Your healing is not linear. It is up and down and ebbs and flows. But what I did understand and know is that what I was doing was not working. And so I had to do something else. And what that led me two was my own healing, all of that subconscious programming that I didn't even know what was there. I had to really sit and think, what is it? What is the program that I'm telling myself? What are these thoughts? Like, how do I really feel about myself? Well, I feel like my body has let me down. I'm angry at my body. This is so unfair. Why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? These are childhood traumas that I've brought into my life. So I had to really go back and do some somatic healing. I started with sitting in meditation. I know that that's hard and it was hard for me at first, but in those quiet moments, I was able to have, in particular, three times where my daughter came to visit me in meditation and where she hugged me and she put her arms around me and I felt like he was real and I was like, oh God, I never want to wake up. I don't want to open my eyes. I don't want this to be over because I know she'll be gone. But I needed those moments. She came to me and I felt like she had forgiven me. And in her forgiveness, I forgave myself. So there was a lot of compassion that I had to show myself, a lot of self-love. There was a lot of healing that needed to happen. And I needed to start thinking in a completely different way. I was always disaster planning. What was the worst possible scenario here? Instead of actually allowing myself to think, what is the best possible scenario? What is it that I really want? I wouldn't allow myself to even dream of what that would be like because I didn't want to jinx it. Or what I really want never really happens. These are the programming I was telling myself. I had to become aware and conscious of what I was telling my body because your mind is listening to everything you say and then it tells your body because everything is connected. And when I began to realize that and I realized what I was doing and I began to undo all that programming and start putting out into the universe and energy and frequency what it is that I truly wanted, things changed really fast. And so when you realize you're like, holy crap, like I started doing these things and I started envisioning what I really wanted. And then I worked on being in alignment, thinking, acting, and feeling where those all match up. My son popped down in 4 months. I mean, it's crazy. So that's why I'm like, holy crap, like this works. This energy works. Like healing yourself works. You have the power to do this. There's so much more to fertility than just your reproductive organs. And that's what I want to scream from the rooftops. And I know that you talk about this so much too. And we need to realize this. This needs to be incorporated into our fertility paths.
Absolutely. That's so beautiful. And I think that there's so many ways that we can go back to mother ourselves, right? All of those programming and conditioning and childhood traumas really that you're living out, wanting to be liked by him. And one thing that came to my mind is, and I know I can speak to this from experience, is okay, tell me everything that I need to do. Okay, did it, check, check, check. It's got to work, right? It's got to work because that's exactly how it worked when we were in school. Like, study, do this, and you get good grades. Go to college, do really well, and you graduate and then you get a good paying job, like all of these things. And for me personally, when fertility like did not equate in that way, it's what's happening, right? Our our journey to motherhood is like the first instance where we really realize that control is a complete illusion and we really
Yes.
don't have any control at all. So yeah, that's one thing that came to my mind when you were explaining that. But yeah, we all have traumas and things that we're holding on to, and some of it isn't even ours. It's from past generations, but we truly have the power to release it and let it go. It doesn't have to be this hard, right? Like you said, in 4 months, you
Yeah.
really started seeing such a drastic change. And I just had a recent client who had a luteal phase defect. She came to me with a 7, 8 day luteal phase, and she was so open to womb healing and energy work, and she got pregnant. She was doing like a PDG testing, and it basically told her, your levels are too low. You didn't ovulate this
Yeah.
month. And she conceived.
Amazing.
Completely illogical. Doesn't make any sense. And she's at least heading towards the end of her second trimester. So she was also able to sustain the pregnancy without ever taking progesterone. Someone who had a 7 or 8 day luteal, like that doesn't make any sense. So it just really goes to show how powerful this work is. We just have to be open to it. And some of us aren't there yet, and
Yeah.
that's okay. That's okay.
Mhm.
Maybe
Yeah.
you will get pregnant via IUI or IVF, and then maybe this healing journey will meet you somewhere else
Yeah.
down the road. I really only had done so much healing before I got pregnant. A lot of it came afterwards.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just be compassionate with wherever you are on your journey, and if you're not there yet, that's okay. It can always kind of come back around in full circle. But amazing.
Yeah. It's exactly what I think there at the end of resistance is where your healing starts. And we want things to be logical, right? That's the masculine side of our brain. We want things to make sense. We want to have scientific proof, but so many things in life that are beautiful don't make sense. What you just said about your client, I love to hear things like that because miracles happen if you believe them, but you have to believe them first. And you can't just half-heartedly believe them. You have to fully believe them. That's what alignment means. There's all these sayings too. I was just talking to my husband about this. Hope for the best, but expect the worst. It's things like this that are so ingrained in us that we don't even think about. But think about that. Those are two completely different statements. They're in complete opposite of each other. That's two completely different frequencies.
Mhm.
It doesn't make any sense. So that's why when I would love to say that I came to a point of healing and taking my power back on my own, but I didn't. I was forced because the doctors were like, this isn't going to work for you unless you can spend another $50,000 or even $100,000 on a surrogate. So that was completely out of the question. So I was like, I'm not giving up. And I didn't give up. And that's what led me down this path of healing. But I mean, we are such powerful, energetic beings. We are in this, and I know that society and our own pains and our own traumas strips us of that. But then when you realize and you start to do different things and you start to act and think different ways, and things begin to change, and you notice certain things changing and you feeling better and feeling lighter and feeling more flow, then you're like, you take notice of it. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this. And that's when the real opportunities really open up. And too, when I speak with my clients, it's a very simple way to start. This is how I started. It's a clear intent with an elevated emotion. And if I couldn't still my mind during meditation, I would just focus on that. The intent was that I wanted to have another baby. And the emotion, the elevated emotion was awe and joy
Mm.
and love. And I allowed myself and my body to envision, but also feel. And when I started to feel these feelings is when the magic happened. I was beginning to connect and I felt this joy. I was able to drop into the present moment and be joyful in that moment. And I think, too, a lot of these babies are wanting their mothers, their fathers to be conscious of the way they're living and their own personal joy before they bless us with their presence. I really believe that. And I really believe that Paloma really brought her two little siblings to me. But at first, I had to do the work. And she was here to show me that all the ways that my heart could expand and that all the ways that I could become a more conscious and patient and better parent.
Mm-hmm. 100%. And yes, when you can bring in all of the senses when you're in that meditation, right? What are you feeling? What are you seeing? What emotions are coming up? Maybe it's you holding your baby for the first time. What are you
Mm.
smelling that new baby smell and just all of these things. So that is so powerful. I love that you shared that. And I love that you said our babies want their parents in a more conscious state. And I truly think that that is for a reason because the world needs that. Because
Mhm.
if you have ideally two, but at least one conscious parent and you grow up to be a more conscious being, like the ripple effect in the people that are going to be touched is just going to keep rippling throughout the world, and the world needs that so badly right now. So, yeah, I mean, I've never necessarily thought or said this before, but when you say that, maybe we do have to work a little bit harder to get pregnant these days because we are in a very different world than generations before us were in, right? They didn't have screens and phones attached to them that made them dissociated from themselves and from the world. So maybe we do have to work a little bit harder to get pregnant or on a conscious level. So, on that note, I know that you're having a fertility retreat coming up in July. I would love for you to share all the details with the listeners because when I looked it up, it looked amazing. It looked so, so cool. And I know just from speaking to you on this episode that the support and the space that you're going to hold for women is going to be so powerful. And having a retreat is something like on my mental vision board. So you're out here doing it, and I'm rooting for you. I'm so excited for you and any women that say yes to this opportunity.
Thank you so much. That was so kind. Yeah, when I lost my daughter, a friend of mine dragged me to a yoga retreat in Costa Rica. And I have to say it was deeply healing because it was the first time I felt like myself again. Because I think when you're going through this infertility journey, you really lose yourself in a lot of different ways. And it was a way to really feel like myself again. I had become so numb from all the pain, and I was just trying to make it through the days that this was an amazing release for me. And it wasn't anything fertility driven, it was just a yoga retreat. So my retreat is encapsulating that. Come and reconnect with yourself. Come be supported by other women who understand your pain and your trauma and allow yourself to be held. A lot of us, and me included, I did a lot of suffering alone because I had a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. But I want the women listening right now to understand that you're not alone and there's nothing to be shameful about. It's not your fault, and that there are ways to heal yourself. Our bodies can heal themselves, but you have to be open to your own healing. And so I would love to guide you. We have Reiki that I will be practicing, and then we have a cathartic writing session, and we have a sound bath as well. And then we have the magic of what is Costa Rica, where the jungle meets the beach. It's a beautiful, magical country, and I know it's going to be a healing experience for everyone who joins, as well as myself. So I'm super stoked to host everyone there in July.
I love it. Love it. And I'll be putting the link to that in the show notes.
Mm.
And can you tell the listeners where they can find you, connect with you, and learn more about you?
Sure. I'm on Instagram, Karla Levit, and on my website as well, karlalevit.com. And I mean, you can find me on Instagram mostly and DM me, and I would love to support anyone that might want to connect.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your beautiful, inspiring story and for the work that you're doing today. It is sorely needed to really be able to empower and help women step back into their power. So, thanks so much, Karla.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Rising into Mindful Motherhood podcast. If this episode resonated with you or gave you an aha moment, stop what you're doing right now and write a review. This simple act of kindness helps me get this podcast out to connect with as many women as I possibly can. I also have a special offer. If you send me a screenshot of your review, I will take $250 off one of my premium coaching containers. Let me know what resonated with you the most and why. So connect with me in my free Facebook community or tag me on Instagram. You'll find both listed below. Thanks again from the bottom of my heart for tuning in to this episode, and I'll see you next time.